Would we buy the MRC-250 again after 2 full batches of meat birds? The short answer is yes, but there are 3 things that we would like to change about this coop, and one of those things actually hurt a few of our birds. So let's take a look at everything that we've learned about this coop after 2 full batches, the good and the not so good.
Hi and welcome back to Whitetail Acres Farm. If you've been following along, you know we've been raising pastured poultry for a while now, and this past spring we finally made the investment in an MRC-250 mobile range coop, or as most people just call it, a really elaborate chicken tractor. Now, if you don't know what a chicken tractor is, here's the idea in a sentence. It's a coop that you move across the pasture every day so your birds get fresh grass and bugs to forage on, and your pasture gets fertilized as they go. It's a way to raise meat birds out on grass instead of a stationary building. We ran our first batch through earlier this spring. There were a few learning curves along the way, and I mean a few, but overall it went really well. Now we're getting ready to process our second batch, which is a bigger one, 200 birds. And now that we have a whole season under our belt, we want to share the benefits and the challenges, honestly, because this coop is a big investment and we know a lot of you are trying to decide if it's worth it. Before we get into what we love and what we change, let's quickly walk through what this thing actually is so we're all on the same page. The MRC-250 is a mobile coop designed to hold up to 250 meat birds. It's got a steel frame, a roof, and mesh sides so the birds have airflow, and it glides on grass so you can pull it around the pasture, usually with a tractor or even with a side-by-side. The whole unit is solar powered, which runs the feeding system inside. Inside you got a big feed hopper that drops feed automatically on a timer and a water system with it. I want to say 6 waters hanging down from the ceiling that feed off the water tank. The idea is that you can leave the birds out on pasture for days at a time without hauling bags of feed or jugs of water out there every single day. That's the concept. Now let's get into what actually happened when we used it for a full season. The first thing that we love, and honestly the whole reason we bought it, is how easy it is to move across our pasture. We pull it forward a section every day and the birds step onto completely fresh grass every morning. For meat birds, that's huge. They get new forage, new bugs, and they're not sitting in their own mess from the day before. The moving itself is smooth. It's balanced well, and we've moved it with the tractor and even the side-by-side without any issues whatsoever. And the difference in the birds themselves is real. They're out on grass, and they're active, and they're doing what chickens are supposed to do. A lot of people ask us if we could build something cheaper, and honestly we could, but this thing is engineered to do one job over and over, day after day, and that reliability is what we're paying for. And speaking of what the birds are supposed to do, stay tuned because the overeating piece is one of the most important things this coop does right, and it's easy to get wrong if you're not paying attention. We'll get into that in a minute. The second thing we love is the feeding and watering systems because they're enormous, and that matters more than you'd think.
Now, we love the fact that this hopper holds 700 pounds of feed, and that saves a ton of time from not having to bring bags of feed out to the chickens every single day. We really only have to fill this maybe once or twice a week, if that, depending on how many birds that we are running at any given time. But it's nice and secure, easy to open. And then we just put several bags of feed in here at a time, close it up, and then it's a pretty much set it and forget it system. The watering system in here is equally impressive. There's a huge 70-gallon water tank in the back there that we fill through a hose in the back area, and I'll show some footage of us using our IBC tote system to easily fill that thing. We can fill it in literally 60 seconds, which is staggering. And the watering system is automatic. It just goes down to 6 different waters that hang from the top of the ceiling in here, and the chickens can help themselves to fresh water whenever they want.
Maybe tomorrow you can come out and add the rest of the wire. You gotta finish the other end and do this end.
We love that the whole unit is solar powered, and it really comes in handy because we could have this unit anywhere on our property. We don't have to be running extension cords or anything like that. This unit actually controls not only the feed and the water, there also are lights inside it, so we can light it up at night if we need to get in there for any reason and see what we're doing. And the feeding system is timed, so I'll talk about that in a moment. But it's amazing how powerful this solar unit is and how effective it is. So it is a huge plus in our books here for this unit. Now here's one feature of the coop that is really underrated, and that's the timer for the feeding system. Now we can open this unit up and set the time to how many hours each day the feeding system will allow feed to automatically flow into all of the feeders along the center of the coop for the birds to enjoy. And that is really important because meat birds aren't able to regulate their diet and the amount that they eat like hens do. If you give 24/7 feed to a meat bird, they will literally eat themselves to death. And so the length of time you allow them to have access to feed throughout the day is critical. And after several years of us raising meat birds now, we have learned this, and this coop system, the timer system, really helps us be able to really dial in, no pun intended, and control those hours of feed. With this system, we just plug in the number of hours. So depending on how big of a batch we have, we may, change it to fewer hours or longer hours throughout the day. But we have really nailed it now with this batch of birds in particular. We had very little loss. I think out of all 200 birds, from day one of us buying our birds, we may have lost a total of 3, which is phenomenal because so what we found is that there is a little bit of a gap here, and it is flexible. So if the birds are huddling up in the corners, which they tend to like to do, especially when they're younger, whoever is the one closest into the corner will end up getting pushed out of this opening, and then they will end up out in the field. And maybe depending on where you live, that's not an issue. But we happen to have a lot of predators nearby, like fox, coyote, things like that, that we don't trust our birds just being out free ranging. It's the whole reason why we got this coop, so that way they can still enjoy the benefits of being on pasture, but be safe. And so it's a concern for us when we come out and we see that there's birds that have escaped. So way we troubleshoot that, especially with this new batch, is that we put some boards, whether it be like wood logs for the fireplace or anything like that, we'll put on the outside here on both sides. So that way we don't have to worry about birds accidentally escaping. If we could make another change to this coop, it would be the way the sides are constructed. Now, we appreciate the overall construction of this coop. It's awesome. But down here on either side of the coop, there's this piece of aluminum, and it's rounded, and it's right underneath literally the side wall. And it's designed in a way so that way it can just easily glide over the grass, which is awesome. However, the birds, especially as they get older and bigger and lazier, they like to all push up against the sides of the coop. So when you're moving the coop forward to try getting it on fresh grass, the birds that are pushed up against it, their toes and their little feet can get stuck and wedged underneath that bar and between like the bar and the grass. And it's happened several times now where somebody's always inside the coop when it's getting moved, just to make sure everybody's moving along, no issues. But when we see that a bird has its legs stuck underneath it, we immediately have to tell whoever's driving the tractor, which is usually Ryan, to stop, and then we have to try to lift this up, which it's the unit itself, it's light enough that a tractor can move it, even our side-by-side can move it, but it's kind of heavy if people are trying to lift it. So it can be a challenge to not only lift it to free the trapped bird, but then it's also become a real issue because a few of our birds have actually broken their legs from it, and it's just really stressful all around. Because these waters are fantastic, don't get me wrong. We love that it has a huge tote that can hold 70 gallons of water, which really limits the number of times that we need to come out and actually fill the water for the birds. However, what we've noticed with these is that even though they are adjustable, so you can easily, lift it up if you need to, and you can lower it down if you need to, but it doesn't stay very stable. And so you can see this one is kind of tilted. I can go and try to manually adjust them, but as soon as the birds come in and they start drinking from it or bump into it, it's going to start to tilt again. The water will drip out a little bit more frequently than it should, which ends up having the water in the tote go down a little quicker than you would expect. And so if we could change this watering system, the only thing we would change about it is for it to be a little bit more stable. I don't know if that would require having 3 ropes come down instead of just the one, to maybe have 3 points of contact on the base of it to keep it a little more sturdy. Don't know what the answer is, but I do know that we have found many times now, especially with a larger group of birds like this, that they bump into it a lot, it'll be tilted a lot, and sometimes it's just like free-flowing water just trickling out, and spilling on the ground. And then we have to start, especially when they're bigger towards the end of their processing time, we have to check on the water more often because when they're young. One of the best features that this offers is a shade cloth. If you have the opportunity to purchase a shade cloth, 100% recommend it. It makes a world of a difference with the temperature inside the coop. Literally noticed immediately from the moment we put this on, the entire inside of the coop was shaded and the temperature dropped and the birds were way more comfortable. So if you can get this, definitely put it on. It may take a little patience using the wiggle wire to install it, but worth every second of your time.
So let's bring it all together here. Would we buy the MRC-250 again knowing everything we know now? Yes, we absolutely would. Here's the thing, every single one of these flaws we just walked through, we found a way to adapt to. The gaps under the door, we block them with wood. The birds getting their feet stuck, we just move slower, have someone inside the coop while it's moving to monitor the birds and watch the sides, and we've got our prying system set up. The tilting waters, we top off a little bit more often. None of these things we couldn't work around. But the benefits, the easy daily moves, fresh grass, huge feeding and watering capacity, the solar power, the timed feedings that keep the birds from overeating, those are all things that we'd have a very hard time giving up. There are a lot more good features than not. And we learned that even though this coop is supposed to be able to handle up to 250 birds at a time, we think we'd probably try to keep it around 175 because that seems to be the sweet spot to give the birds adequate room in here. So the honest review is, we love this coop, we recommend it, and we're adapting around the few downfalls as we go. And that's the thing about homesteading in general. Very little of it comes turnkey. You learn, you adjust, you keep moving forward. And that brings me to the part I genuinely want to hear from you about. If you've had any experience with these coops, or any mobile chicken tractors really, we'd love to hear about it in the comments below, especially if you found a better fix for the things that we've talked about, because we're always looking to learn. Have you dealt with escapees, figured out a trick for the waters? Let us know. If you're not already following along, we'd love to have you subscribe. We're out here every week sharing what we're learning as a first-generation homesteading family, the wins, the failures, and everything. We appreciate you being with us today, and we will see you on the next one.